I got a hot one for you today, y'all. Oh yeah, nothing but the fuck is in the house. My main man from Parliament Funkadelic. That's right, you heard it. P-Funk is in the house. Keyboard player extraordinaire. My funk brother from another mothership. Danny DeRosian is in the house with us. Come on, put your hands together, y'all. Oh yeah, we're gonna be talking about a new book that he's doing with the P-Funk song, some P-Funk stories, and all that good funk that this brother puts down on the Nasty 88. We're gonna be mashing your brain, y'all. The dude, Danny's in the house. Florida, where you at? Georgia. I started down there today, y'all. North and South Carolina. Put your hands together. Twitter, Boosie, in Ohio, and Patty. What up, yo? I'm extra hyped today. Virginia, Maryland, Chocolate City, DC. Oh, yeah. Good time wait for you. Funk from the front seat, 9 on the Blind TV. Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. What's up, Dr. Frankenstein? New York City, my hometown. Bay Shore, Staten Island, I got you. New Jersey, you heard? Minneapolis, what's up? Detroit, 313, y'all. Danny's in the house today. Parliament Funkadelic keyboardist. We're going to be getting into it, chopping it up. You know, it's going to be fire. Chicago! LA, what up? Hawaii, all around the world for the funk. Tokyo, I'm Young Hot Yo. Japan, Germany, Cocolino, Italy, thank you for spinning my stuff. DJ Elizabeth in Ireland, I love you. Monica in Sweden, I love you. Africa, Dubai, put your hands together, y'all. Danny DeRosian's in the house. Can y'all say Funkadelic? Can y'all say Parliament? I'm Parliament Funkadelic with the hand, y'all. Nothing but a good time for you. This brother's nice enough to come on tour for a minute and hang with me today, so I appreciate that. It's beautiful September Saturday, y'all. Woo! Canada, where you at? It's a good time waiting for you right here. Funk from the front seat, yo. Put your hands together, y'all. 9 on the Grind TV, you know how we do every Saturday. Woo! I'm already getting funked up. I can't wait to talk to this brother. All around the world for the funk. 9 on the Grind TV, my producer behind the class, Mr. Mark Lee. Always funky, never last. Keeping it funky, keeping it sassy, always classy. I love you, Mark. Thank you, bro. Woo! Come on into my world, y'all. Welcome to Funk from the Front Seat. What's up, Rico? Colombia. I know I got people over there watching it. Ain't nothing but the funk all around the world, y'all. We gonna ease into this one, y'all. And don't forget, man, if you out there and you got a birthday or anniversary or anything like that, man, know that we love you. Today is a special show. I've been following this brother for many, many funk journeys, and I'm telling you, it's nothing more pleasurable than when you hit somebody up in this business. So many people say no, but when you hit somebody up and they say yes, yes, you know, that's the spirit of the funk. That's what keeps us going. That's what keeps us alive. That's what this thing is all about, this funk thing, you know. I know, You guys are going to dig this show. We got a few surprises for you. This brother's got this book that is incredible about, the P-Funk. But I'm going to let him tell you all of that. Right now, without further ado, my funk brother, my funk soldier, my true funk soldier, Mr. Danny Dabrosian's in the house. Bring him in, Mark.
What's up, Zach? How you doing,
all right, man?
Glad to be here, funking from the front seat with you.
I love that. Oh, how I love to hear those words.
Yeah, glad to be here, man. Thank you, and thank Mark, and much love to you guys. I'm glad to be with you today.
Hey, man, let me tell you something, man. You're a true funk soldier, and you're a brother that we all admire. You're a classy brother, beautiful family. You always were so kind and so attentive to everybody around you when they meet you. Of course, crowds gather around this and that. And you've always taken the time, and I noticed this about you. You've always taken the time to make sure you acknowledge each and every fan, and that's special. That's what makes you, in my tops as far as I'm concerned, because I pay attention, man, and I'm so glad you're here. So tell me, man, how's the road life?
Good. We've been touring around, George Clinton Parliament Funkadelic, they have on the tour listed for this year, it says the final tour with question mark emphasized. So we'll see if that's true or not.
I hope not. We don't want the doctor, to put down his practice per se. Although he has cloned enough of us to kind of do a little something, but it'll never be him. But let me tell you, man, this man, come on, this George Clinton, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like, nobody wants to see LeBron James quit playing basketball. You know what I'm saying? So, but I'm glad, man. We're going to load up some stuff in a minute. We're talking today with keyboard player extraordinaire, amazing human being, Danny Dabrosian, the authorized P-Funk song reference, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But so tell me, when did you start in classical piano? Where did you start? And give us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so both of my parents were concert pianists, classically trained, and they ran a piano school up in New England for over 50 years. And my sisters and myself, our family, we lived in the school. So the school was in our house, and hundreds of people coming in and out of the house like all the time. So students, their parents, and we had to enroll from a very young age in the school, classically trained, and had to do all the recitals, the practice every day, the whole routine. And because we were the teachers' kids, the other kids thought for some reason that we must have it easy or something. So our parents were even harder on us, I think, as a result. But that's all, par for the course. When you get older, you thank them for that kind of stuff.
That's right. That's right.
But started at a very young age, playing piano at age 3 or 4, and lessons every week and recitals and competitions and all that kind of stuff. So that was my foundation. And then they worked at a church too, so we had to sing in the choir. I had to do that kind of stuff, accompany singers as well over the years, and also sing myself. So that was like my formative musical background.
Yo, you said something very cool, man, because I'm a preacher's kid. So I don't even have to go into detail about what you said. You always had to be better, do better, this and that,
Yeah.
That funk is such a spiritual thing, and all of us came through the church at one point. That's right. Drummer and bass player here, and whatever, many instruments that you play. But it's like you said, man, we hated then, but Lord knows we thank him now.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I can't even begin to think. Like, my career wouldn't be anything if it weren't for those years, those people, and all of that stuff. So yeah, no, we have to thank them.
Yeah. When you growing up and you listening to all of that music and all these people coming through and, thinking about, your personal style and how you're going to develop that. Did you ever imagine in your wildest dreams that you'd be touring the world with, Star Child?
Well, before I got into P-Funk, when I was still real young, I'm 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I'm listening to jazz. I really got into jazz early. I got into R&B, especially Motown real early, and Northern Soul. I liked Curtis Mayfield. I listened to a lot of gospel. And then I grew up around a lot of kids who were listening to rock and hip hop and so I ended up in their bands doing whatever they needed me to do.
Right.
But I got bit by the P-Funk bug when I was like 11.
Okay.
And around that time, or maybe just a little bit after, 11, 12, I was telling my parents, I'm gonna be the keyboard player for P-Funk when I grow up.
That's right.
They're like, okay, they never said no. They're just like, okay, whatever, Danny, whatever you say. And I just never, I never strayed from that. I did other things, but I never strayed from that path. Like, that was what I set out to do. There were other opportunities laid out before me, and in some cases that paid more, in other cases that were like the sure thing right then. And I still didn't take it because that's not what I'm going for. That's not the thing that I'm looking for. Like, this wasn't a stepping stone for me. This was the thing. This was the thing,
Yeah.
And a lot of P-Funk fans can understand that, being their favorite band or whatever. It was always my favorite band. And I gave it the same kind of study that I would have given Beethoven or Chopin or Bach.
Amen.
That real study, like really care about this music and what it is, because a lot went into it, as you know. And, Bernie Worrell was classically trained. So I heard that in all the music. It could have been Nappy Dugout from the Cosmic Slop album, or it could have been one of those funky things from Motor Booty Affair, just trying to throw like real random ones out. And I could still hear in all of that the classical. So it really influenced me in a big, big way. And the genre bending thing, P-Funk just kind of plays all the genres. And I was doing everything, but I didn't have that one thing that contained everything. And P-Funk was that for me. And so I was just, this was my path from the point that I started hearing it. I was like, this is it for me.
I love the fact that you're talking to our audience, and we're hanging out today with this amazing gentleman, Danny D'Ambrosio, Parliament Funkadelic, of course, and it needs no introduction. But when you mentioned as a kid, that right there tells me your third eye is always awake,
right?
Always awoke, and is completely awake, because you already were manifesting what you wanted for your destiny.
Exactly.
And again, obviously, I sent you pictures of me and George, and I said, yo, one day, I've been doing something. When I just did the Funk This Ball last year with Mike Campton, and he's playing, and I'm singing Knee Deep. Yo, I was like, wow, it really happened.
Right.
It really happened. Surprised myself. But, that just goes to show, I'm always talking to my audience about manifestation and the power that lives within us. The Creator gives us that, When you first got that bug, you said you got bit at age 11. What was it? A specific song? I know you said the classical. You heard that.
Yeah.
But when you hear that classical and what that genius, Mr. Bernard Da Vinci Worrell, was doing, back then, people, they tried to gravitate to it, but sometimes it was just over their head. Now, us funk heads, we knew exactly what George and them was doing, and Bootsy and all of them, and Bernie, and we knew, because we were like, this stuff here is such an original kind of sounding crossover-ish stuff.
Yeah.
Most of us in my neighborhood, Edgar Winter White Trash, Grand Funk Railroad, of course, Motown, of course, whatever, Hendrix and stuff. And I heard Testify, and my father being a minister, he let me play it in the house because the word testify was in it.
Nice. That's funny.
That's how I got it in. That's how I slipped it in.
That's amazing.
Yes, that's how I slipped it in.
Wow.
So when you started, growing up, did you do any thinking about, well, once I start writing all this material, I'm just going to start writing funk? Because you play so many different styles.
Yeah.
What are some of the other types of music that you've created yourself for yourself?
Yeah. So, in addition to like the classical, I was doing a lot of jazz. I was playing in jazz combos. I was playing Armenian music because I'm Armenian ethnically. And so I was singing in Armenian, playing Armenian music. And then I was, probably to answer the first part of your question, the first P-Funk song, other than a sample that I had heard, was Get Dressed from Computer Games, because Computer Games was my first album that I had of P-Funk.
Yeah.
And then I think the second album I had was something like Greatest Hits or something, and so would have, all those, Make My Funk, Up for the Downstroke, those type of things. And you know, from a really young age, from when I started listening to P-Funk, I said, okay, well, I'm gonna have a band while I'm not in P-Funk that's in the style sort of P-Funk. So I put together a group, and we were together about 6 years. We put out 6 albums all through my teenage years and through college, and it got up to 18 pieces. So it was a big band. Yeah, a bunch of players, and I based it on P-Funk All Stars, you know, and we had a lot of original material. We played long shows, you know. It was a lot of those parallels, and I was doing like everything as a kid trying to break into the business. So I was doing like everything from like producing, engineering, booking the shows, like, but that was in the days of like cold calling. We were just calling these clubs,
yes,
and being like, hi, so my band, we play around the area, and we wanted to know if we could play at your club. Like, it was, you know, so different than it is now. And we were kids, granted, you know, so
excited.
Yeah, excited and not really know naivete all over the place, but it was great. And I had that band for 6 years, and really in that time I started producing my friends' bands and other people that were coming around, and it would be anything genre-wise. It could be country or punk rock or metal or hip hop, or like there were bands that would have me come in and just sing hooks or just play keys because there was no musicians. I'd be the only musician in the neighborhood or in that part of the neighborhood or whatever. And then there'd be other bands where they'd have me come and we just need harmonies. We know you can harmonize. So if you can do harmonies of all our parts, you know, it'd be stuff like that, arranging. Or I'd come in and just drop a solo in, you know. It was all real different and real varied. And so I think, again, that was another reason why P-Funk appealed to me so much, because I was able to, I felt I would be able to wear all these different hats, but for the same job, instead of just, for this job I do this, and for this job I do this one thing. I was able to do all those things at different times with P-Funk because it's whatever the party calls for, you know. So
that's right. Do.
Yeah. So that was exciting to me, you know. So I was creating a lot of funk though, like pre-funk, before I was in P-Funk. And other kinds of music too, and I still do. You know, I still do a lot of production and that kind of thing. So
isn't it funny how the universe gets you ready for stuff, and then the slightest little thing, and then you're like, wow, that's right. I remember this was programmed into me. So it comes quite easily. You know, it's such an amazing thing, the gift of life. I tell everybody, you know, value, and everybody out there watching. We're hanging out with Danny DeBrosi today. He's kind enough to join us off tour on this beautiful September Saturday. And, you know, this brother right here is the real deal, man. His spirit's in the right spot. His heart's in the right spot. And, you know, of course, he's doing the funk thing. So, you know, I was following one of your shows, and I saw something on YouTube, a video, and they kind of highlighted after George and Mike. They kind of went to you, right? And you were like that album cover where Bernie is the keyboard and his hands come out. That was you. I saw it, bro. And you know I'm 65 years old. You know, I know the real. So I said, man, look at this cat, right? Your hand was down. Right? You just hit it, and it was like the perfect shot. You know,
nice.
You just in it, man. And I was listening, of course, to what you were doing, obviously. And I was like, man, you know, the funk god sent the funk replacement to handle some of the stuff that Bernie and, you know, Razor and them was doing, man. Because
thank you.
I never sleep on Razor either. People forget, you know. And then of course, you know, all the other great keyboard players that have come through the years, man. And you know, they pass the torch off. How does that? I know it's an honorable thing, but how do you feel when you know that you've been passed this amazing torch to carry it, you know, forever? How long?
Well, I mean, you always want to give it the weight of respect that it deserves. Amen. So that was always my thing with that. And, you know, directly studied under Jerome Rogers and Bernie Worrell for many, many years, and played with Razor very briefly in the band. And then all through the years, luckily, I played with Amp Fiddler quite a bit, and David Lee Chong, Gary Hudgens, a few other the guys that I got to know. And it is a super important legacy. You know, I look at it, that's the keyboard legacy. So when I first was learning this music as a teenager, preteen, up through college and so on and so forth, I was really into learning the way that every one of those guys played. So there's the way that, Bernie did it on the record, on the original, and that's super important. And then the way that each one of those guys subsequently played those parts, because they do things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Like Atomic Dog, Razor would play Atomic Dog different than David and Jerome. And they all kind of played it in Amp. They all had their own way of doing it. That's just one example. But I tried to learn, like for me, it was the whole canon. So not just the original, not just one live way that we're doing it now. I wanted to know all the ways they did it so I could inject these different feelings, because it's about the whole, these songs. If a song is 50 years old and it's being played live, that's 50 years of it growing and changing. Organic, it's an organic, like living thing.
Organic, yes.
Yeah. So that song, like Cosmic Slop, let's say, Cosmic Slop, 50 years old, that song's been played live also for 50 years, where every night these people who are in, whose job it is to carry the mantle and play this standard have to know everything about the history of it. How did Bernie do it? How would he change it from night to night? Because Bernie, he also had like 5 or 6 ways to play every single song, every arrangement.
Yeah.
He would be like, there's 4 different chords you can do here. And I would vary between these 4 different chords. I want you to learn them all. And I'd be like, okay. They'd be like, there's 6 ways that I would do this. You need to know all of them. I'd be like, okay. So there'd be like the 4 or 6 ways that Bernie would do everything. And that's not even including all the overdubs that he did. And then the way that each guy did it over the years after he was gone, or after whoever was next, whoever's job it was. Yeah. So for me, it's just internalize. And then only after about 15 years, did I feel like, okay, I can place a certain amount of me-isms in there alongside all the everybody else-isms. But only once I had reached a point where I felt, okay, I've been in there a decade, I've been in here 15 years or whatever. At that point, I was like, okay. And now it's been 20 plus years. So wow, you can hear my stamp on a lot of stuff now, but that's only after letting it breathe and grow as it is, Yeah.
So almost like, you had to grow with the music in addition to growing it yourself. Yeah. Tending that garden. That's one thing about the funk and the funk genre per se, and the few funk bands that are actually doing it correctly, and not just the P, but other funk bands, Dumpster Funk, they're my friends, and other funk Mother's Finest. But as like you said, over a period of time, it just becomes this little seed, and then boom, it sprouts into this huge mushroom thing, Yeah. And that's the beauty of funk. You can play it differently all the time.
Yeah.
And still make it make sense.
Yeah.
George used to tell me it's the notes in between the notes that makes the funk float. And I actually have a song ready to go to do that one day.
Nice.
I pen everything everybody says around me. So don't be surprised if you see me taking notes right now. I'm working on song. I'm pulling hooks. Hooks, Yeah, man. We're hanging out today, Funk from the Front Seat, Not on the Grind TV. My producer, Mr. Mark Lee, back there scrambling, working really, really hard. I appreciate you, Mark, man. Without Mark Lee, this show doesn't go, and I always have to acknowledge that, brother, man. So, Danny, tell me, when you first did your very first P-Funk gig, where was it?
So my first one playing keys was in Tallahassee. I had just moved to Tallahassee after I graduated from college, and I moved down to Florida, and I got my first gig playing with George. It was at a show at this place called The Moon, and the whole band wasn't there because some reason or another, but this was like my first chance. This was like sort of my audition, Yeah. And I played Fender Rhodes electric piano. That's all they have. They had a Fender Rhodes, and I played that, and Jerome played keys too. And that was my very first gig. I was 22 playing with George. First gig playing with George. And then I got hired on full time like a couple months after that, and started playing right away in the tours and stuff, end of 2003.
Yeah.
And then I remember but I also remember my first show where I played the whole show. Yeah. And that was in Finland.
Okay.
In 2004. Because before that, I was just doing they'd have me first. They had me play one song, and then they had me play like 2 or 3 songs. Then there'd be like a section of the show where I was playing. But then, by the time I'd been in the group about 6 months, 5 months, something like that, that's when they started having me play the whole show. And I remember that one better probably than my first show.
Yeah. The amount of energy it takes to do a funk show, because we all had our funk bands and this and that. And my first original funk band, I was doing drums, and I was like, man, Dennis was always my guy. I was into Dennis from the way back, because being from Queens, New York, and everything, and he was doing Don Blackman and all that stuff, and he also did a lot of stuff for the Sugar Hill record label that people don't know about.
Yeah, I was just telling a friend of mine who's a big hip hop head. I was they liked him because he was such a steady hand, and he came to a drum off that the Long Island Drum Center was having, and I was in the drum off. I didn't win. I should have. No, I should have been in third, like maybe. But but I got a trophy. I placed. Nice. I think we placed the show. I was in the category like 20, but it was great because I said, wow, I talked to him and I was like, man, I watched you from the Brides and now you with the funk. I said, bro, you got some stamina. Yeah.
That brother had stamina.
Yeah.
These long shows that George has been known to do and the band and everybody, man, kudos to you guys for showing up night after night after night to do a 3.5, 4 hour show. That shit is hard, bro.
Sure. Yeah.
It's hard, man. And thank God, you guys have helped keeping the funk alive, and some of us are trying to do our part, keep the funk alive, and the genre that, we have to keep alive because this is very, very important stuff, And when George went into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Parliament Funkadelic, in a way, everybody that was a funker, we all felt like we went in. We was like, yeah, because finally, how did that make you feel?
Definitely good. And to touch on the first part of what you were saying, you said it best too when you were saying, we all kind of got our training in our funk bands, emulating P-Funk and such. And I remember the longest show I ever played was actually with my old funk band in college. And we played 9.5 hours.
Whoa.
From 4:30 in the afternoon to 2:30 in the morning or 2 in the morning, something like that. And I was, lead singer and keys. And the only break I took was I took a break to play. You'll enjoy this. I took a break to play drums for 3 songs to let my drummer take a break. So that was the only break from singing and playing keys I took was to play drums for 3 songs. So 9.5 hours. And we had so much catalog that we only repeated 2 songs.
Wow.
I was like, wow, right? Okay. Yeah. And then with P-Funk, the second longest show I ever played, but the longest one with George, and this is insane too, 7 hours and 45 minutes.
Where you got to tell us that story.
It was at a festival in Salem, outside of Salem, Missouri, at a place called Zoefest. Right. And we did that festival twice, I think. And both times it was one of these like crazy psychedelic, just out there. This was in the bad old days. And everybody was still going crazy. And it's 7 hours and 45 minutes. And that takes a special kind of stamina too. Like that's one thing a lot of people have to understand, because I maintain a pretty rigorous classical regimen every day. So I practice right when I wake up, I run, I come back from running, take a shower, and I practice for a few hours. And every day to keep up, keep the sword sharpened, stay with it. It really helps with playing out live too and things like that. It just keeps your mind pointed and it just keeps you on your toes and at the top of your game.
Yeah.
Because you never know when you have to do things like this. Now, granted, we don't do those type of long shows anymore, but when I was my first decade in the band, the average show was 4.5 hours or 5.
It was. That's right.
You remember.
Yep.
And if we did a bunch of 6-hour shows in a row, that was not atypical. Like that would happen,
Yeah.
God, I'm so glad though that we're not doing it like that anymore. But you know what's funny? I don't even think it's because we've gotten older or George has gotten older. It doesn't really have to do with any of that. The real reason why, and this is 1,000% true, is because people today with social media, reels, memes, and all these type of things, the patterns for the ability to sit with something for a long time, that's gone by that's the way of the dodo now. You know, the idea of you know, sitting and doing one thing for, or like listening to a whole album. You know, let's say the album, you know, it could be a 44-minute, right? 44-minute standard album. Doesn't seem like super long, but today, a postmodern person's idea of that sounds crazy. Like, I have no time for that. I need to be looking at this 13-second or 7-second long thing, and then next. Yeah. So the idea of getting people to sit through anything, a 4-hour, 5-hour show, to your average human being in the 2020s, they look at that like that's the craziest thing you could possibly say. And it wasn't even 20 years ago we were doing these 5- and 6-hour shows. It's like 15 years, 12 years ago, you know?
Right.
And now, you know, now there's no attention span for that, you know? So I think it really has to do with the generations, not even about us getting older. Not that we necessarily want to play these super duper long shows, but George would have this, he just has this stamina where he can just go and go. Yeah. And in his old age and his good health, he's even better at that kind of thing. So I think it's more just about the generation and how it, you know, how it's changed. But definitely, it made a difference to me when they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yeah. I was working for the band right when I had already started working for the band, but I wasn't on the road yet or anything. When they had done it, I was doing like session work for them, coming down on breaks and doing sessions and things like that, studio work. And I wasn't out of school yet, but I do remember taping. This is also showing my age. Taping the show because it broadcast on the radio, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing, and we didn't have cable at my house growing up, so we had it on the radio. It was probably on cable TV, HBO or something, but we had the radio. So I took the cassette tape, dubbed it in on the tape deck, ran it to the receiver, which had the radio on it, and recorded the show on my tape and listened to that tape a million times because it was you know, it was the induction ceremony and the performance too. Yeah. And so yeah.
I know when you mentioned before about doing session work and everything, most people don't realize like how in depth you are when it comes to what you actually are playing. They see musicians on stage, they're like, oh, they figure that's all that they could play. And then when you break down Parliament Funkadelic, most of the members in the band played all the instruments. You know, that's what I kind of knew, you know, but then when I was like, wow, you know, when I sat down and hung out with Boogie Munson and he was telling me, you know, bass guitar, this and that, and then Skeet comes in. So everybody was very multi-versatile when it came to understanding and adding those bricks into the pyramid. As Mark Lee's loading this thing up, I want to read something. The authorized P-Funk song reference, official canon of Parliament Funkadelic, 1956 to 2023, by Daniel Dobrosian. Okay, what is that about?
So that's the book that's dropping November 15th that I've been writing most of my life, but that I finally decided to really push forward and do for real during the pandemic. So it was, you know, 3 really, really straight years of just 5 hours of typing and conducting interviews every day. And it basically is all the songs that you can consider part of the P-Funk canon, from the Parliaments, your Pat Lewis, Roy Handy, J.J. Barnes, going all the way through to Funkadelics, and any group. If you're thinking of a song, Shaky Ground by the Temptations, a lot of Funketeers know, you know, that's Eddie and Billy. Well, that's in the book. That can be considered part of the P-Funk canon because that most P-Funk fans consider that Funkadelic. They don't even consider like the Temptations are on it. That's Funkadelic, you know.
Right.
Things like that. Johnny Taylor's Disco Lady. Things like that. Okay.
Yes.
All of that stuff is in there. But so is The Brides of Funkenstein, Parlette, Horny Horns, Sweatband, Quasar, Mutiny, and on and on. If there's a few people in the band or a couple people in the band that are on the album, hopefully it's in the book. And it
Yeah,
goes all the way through, you know, it's 68 years of P-Funk history, but it's 8 different decades.
yeah.
So the 50s through the 2020s, 8 different decades.
Wow.
It's the longest running musical entity in popular music history ever. And it's the longest running band with the band leader still alive. And it's the largest discography of any musical group of all time. So this, I felt like it needed to be put into like a textual, a volume that people could see. This is how big this is. Look at this thing. This is, you know, it's African American Music Month this month. What, you know, well, it was the month that we recorded this. And you know, what better time to be talking about it than then, you know, because it is a major pillar in African American history.
Yeah.
It's a major pillar in like modern music history, and how we even look at modern music can be seen through this eye of P-Funk, because from the samples. Now, I don't have all the samples in the book. That would be a different book. But everything that features, like if there's a P-Funk song that's got P-Funk, a hip hop song that's got P-Funk people on it, that's in the book. That's in the book.
Yes.
And all the solo records, from, you know, Lily Hayden's to Bootsy Collins to just all the different soul, Maceo, or it could be anybody, Kendra Foster, or anybody, all the way up to the modern period. And really what it is who played and who sang on those records. That's the main thing that this book is. Other than, there's some other stuff too, like it describes each band. There's like a little biography of each group, so you can get a little history of this is who this is even the artists. And then all the songs that charted, all the songs that made it onto the charts have little write-ups too, where you get to find out a little bit about what made this more popular than the others. And then every song is listed who played and who sang. Every single song. So you get to find out things like you were just saying about Cordell Boogie Monsoon. Boogie played drums on a gang of records, and a lot of people don't know that.
Yes,
He's actually, you know, if you took the songs Boogie, Mudbone, and Bootsy played, they played more than a lot of the drummers did in the studio.
That's right.
So you could throw those 3 guys up against any one of your mainstay drummers, and they probably have more songs in the catalog. And you can see things like that in this book, you know, or song you were playing at the opening, for instance, Good to Your Ear Hole. You know, I recently saw a video of a guy on YouTube playing very well the bass line to Good to Your Ear Hole, playing it right. But then, you know, in the thing, it's saying something like Bootsy would be proud or something. Yes, I'm sure he would, but that's Reggie McBride playing bass on that song. A lot of people don't know that. You know what I mean? So this is that kind of information that people will be getting. And, you know, like all things like this, you can't be 1,000,000% right, but it's as right as can be ascertained. And it's based on primary source interviews. So I did 140 interviews with 70 band members, past and present, including over 30 hours with George alone. And all different guys from the different eras, people from the 50s, people from the 70s, the 90s, all the different periods, and from all the different groups. If there was a period where I was like, I don't know much about this, I got to find somebody who was like in this, you know, find members of Quasar, members of Mutiny, members of Bootsy's later camp, members of Bootsy's earlier camp, you know, getting these different combinations of people so I could get primary source answers from the people that were in the sessions about who, when, where, how this all went down. So it's all based on primary source material. And that's what gives it legitimation. That's what gives it like real historical accuracy, you know. And also from speaking to guys that we don't have around anymore, guys that have passed on, having asked them questions in my years studying under them and touring with them, I also got a lot of that information through them as well. But most of it is from really recent interviews that I did during the pandemic with people from all the different eras of the P-Funk.
The fact that you even thought about it in such a macro, amazing, large quantity and volume, and the fact that you went back and did the actual interviews with the people You know, like you said, this is not secondhand knowledge. This is firsthand knowledge from the mothership. And that's why I feel that every, you know, like I have Standing in the Shadows of Motown, this is going to be on that same level of I must have it. So I can make sure I preserve, do my part, buy my brick and put it, you know what I'm saying? And make sure, okay, whoever, whatever, here it is. You can never say you don't know if you have the information.
That's right.
It's such a pleasure, man, vibing with you.
Oh man, pleasure's all mine.
You know, yeah, this is amazing. We're hanging out with Danny D'Ambrosio, Parliament Funkadelic, keyboard player George Clinton, of course. You know, all the great stuff that they done, that this brother's doing now. And I want to read your quote again. The authorized P-Funk song reference, official canon of Parliament Funkadelic, 1956 to 2023 by Danny D'Ambrosio. Praise for the authorized P-Funk song reference. And this is from George. Danny D'Ambrosio has done a wonderful job of a seemingly impossible task of reconstructing this history, finding everybody who's been a part of, involved with, or in any way left their fingerprint on what has become the P-Funk. I'm still trying to figure out when he had time to do this. He ain't never missed a show. I love that. See, typical George. He's already thinking outside the box. Like, yeah, but how did you do it?
Yeah, that's yeah.
I'm still trying to find out. So don't tell him. Keep that your little secret. Because I read that and I was like, man, that's typical George, man. Let's go back to something you said before. I used to like play disco bands, right? And I hated disco, but you know, it was a way to make money back then. And I used to be always trying to get my disco band, First Impression, to play Tear the Roof Off or something. And they wouldn't do it. They just wouldn't do it, right? They wouldn't do it. So I said, well, how about Disco Lady? And they said, oh yeah, that's a disco song where you play that. So I fooled them because they didn't realize that was Glenn and them on that and Bootsy on that. Until later, I said, I told you y'all was playing P-Funk all along and never even knew, you know? Shaky Ground, like you said, you know, Eddie and Billy. A friend of mine down here, Ken Knox, from chairman of the board. He's my big brother, kind of like, you know. And, you know, Tiki and them was with him, and Bernie and them did stuff with him. That's right. You Billy, know, and also Jerome with the 5 Stair Steps. So a lot of that stuff came from all these different places. And it's nice to see that this legacy is intact. It's strong. I don't want to hear nobody out there saying, oh, the funk is dead, this and that. Trust me, y'all, that's bullshit. That shit is so far from bullshit. Just go to a P-Funk show or go check out a band that came underneath that, and you'll find out the funk is alive. You can't kill it. Never gets old, never gets sour. Sit, you know, the whole nine. So tell us, what else you got new coming up besides what's going on with this book?
So I got my new album, new Secret Army album, Lost Froth 2.
Yes.
That's out now. It's a live album with my band Secret Army. That's available. And also my new comic collection, Sons of the Sun. This is a 120-page, beautiful, glossy, full-color edition detailing the first 3 issues of my comic. And it also has a sneak preview of the book in the back, the first official preview, complete with QR code in the back of this comic. So I'm selling both of those now, and you guys can I give details?
Oh yeah, of course, man. Yeah, yo, this is your show, bro. You family, man.
Okay, cool. So this one's going for the 25, and this is going for the 50, and you can just send the payments to my either PayPal at info@DannyBedrosian.com or Cash App at $Daniel Bedrosian or Venmo at Daniel Bedrosian. And if they don't want to do it that way, or if they want just digital stuff, they could send for the digital, or they can sign up for my Patreon account. It's www.patreon.com/Danny Bedrosian. And it's the best way for most artists to make money off digital instead of the Spotifys that are like stealing all our money. These guys, they let you just sell your stuff. I have fans that come back, subscribers every month at different levels, and depending on what level you're at, it's what you get. If you're at the $3 level, you get a free song every month. The $10 level, you get 3 songs, and you'd be done with an album in a few months. $20 level, you get a whole album. and then on and on each level. There's some levels where you can get a few albums, a live song, an unreleased song. There's a bunch of different tiers, and that's one way that you can get my products too. If you don't want to just send into the PayPal and get the physical, if you're more interested in digital, through the Patreon is a cool way to do it.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because a lot of artists don't realize the other different forms of revenue streams that are out here in this age of social media. And I want to get back to something that you mentioned earlier about how the attention span has gone from 4 hours down to like 4 seconds.
Yeah.
And, bro, basically, man, I got a 19-year-old, 15-year-old, so I know.
Oh, okay.
If I talk to them once a month, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Because that, and it's just weird. How do you think a lot of the young kids like Lettuce and a lot of these other bands, Trombone Shorty, a lot of the off-breed funk bands are still keeping it alive in that very funky way, in that very funky vibe? And we're dealing with the whole, well, we have an audience and we have music, but we need venues. You know what I mean? And I hated the fact that when I started seeing years ago, iHeart, and I got nothing against them, and, Live Nation, nothing against them. I love all of these, companies dearly because they're perpetuating the music. But I said, man, this might not be the best thing for them to buy every single radio station,
Yeah.
Because now we got to go to P-Funk Radio, or we got to go hunt for stuff individually.
Yeah.
I love the fact that your stuff is all in one spot. That's very important to young artists. If you're going to speak to a young funk artist right now and tell them, how would you tell them to kind of break into the business in this 2 to 3 minute digital world?
Well, first of all, I would say diversify. Don't stick with any one particular piece of this industry. If there's other parts of the industry that you think you're good at, like publishing or arranging or setting up sessions or administrative production, anything, do it, because it definitely, all that stuff gets put together to help you become the well-rounded musician that you are in this day and age. You kind of have to do everything, especially if you're going to be independent. If you're not, it's a whole different way than it used to be with record labels. Everybody's not looking for that anymore because they don't have as much to offer you as you do to offer them, really, honestly, because now it's the time of owning our own music naturally, and we don't have to worry about the same things they did back then. But I definitely feel that you have to know your worth, and you have to be willing enough to say, oh, I'm worth more than this. Why do I keep going for whatever, like with the Patreon compared to, say, a Spotify. Now, what I do is whoever pays me the most, that's who's going to get my album first. Not, because it's exclusivity. It's getting that thing before everybody else. That's why the Patreon is kind of important, because my fans on there will get albums and music and comics before they're even available on anywhere else. Or you might be able to get it at a particular show on a tour, but then you can't find it anywhere else. So Spotify and those guys, I love them. I still use them or whatever, but they get my music last. Yeah. Once I'm done making all the money I can possibly make on it, all the different ways, then they can have it, and the rest of the world can see it and pay me the 0.03 cents per play that they want to pay me. Because otherwise it's just not worth your time. And I just think that since there are options available, people need to take advantage of them. And I've got 23 albums of under my name that I produced. That's not even including the other bands that I've produced and things like that. Wow. So to have something like Patreon is great, because my $20 fans, which is the main tier that most of the people on there are doing, the $20, they get an album every month, and I can just go backwards chronologically. Whatever you missed, here's the next album. Then the next one back. Here's the album from 2019. Here's the one from 2018. Here's one from 2017. Each and every month. And so much new stuff gets put out that it kind of just perpetuates itself constantly. And so you're able to kind of get everything in my catalog without having to worry about, oh, I missed this one or I missed that one. And you're giving it directly to the artist. So, I mean, which is way more important. I think most people would rather give it to the artist. And ever since COVID, nowadays, there's like a real speculator bubble for physical things again. So now things like CDs and comics, the things I sell, now have a new a new marketplace, a new impetus for popularity. And if you don't make a lot of them, that makes them extra rare too. So there's that rarity factor. You can only get it from one place. You can only get it for this long. All of that stuff came back during the pandemic, and it's kind of like permeated the new version of this music industry that we're in now.
It did. It's funny you mentioned that because that's how this show got started. I was sitting in my car one day, it was right the early months of pandemic, and then thinking like, man, you know, I just wanted to tell people in New York, because I worked in healthcare a long time up there. Hey, man, I miss you guys. I'm sorry. You know, people, you know, passing on, transition. And then one day I did it and I sang Three Little Birds, and then I didn't do it. And then 3 days later, somebody said, hey, man, sing that song you did. You know,
nice.
And then they say, hey, you know, we need that up here, you know.
Yes.
So I was like, really? You need that? So I did it. And then I did it a few more times. And then, you know, one day I had it added some commentary about what I felt about COVID and being locked down. Right. Mm-hmm. And I'm a single guy, so I'm locked in the house. So I might as well be in prison. You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
I'm sitting on my porch every day, just playing my bass and just thinking of shit.
Yep.
And so I was sitting in my car and I called my producer, Kevin in Philly. And I was like, yo, man, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. I knew nothing about it. You know, contacted Mr. Mark Lee, my producer back there. And I was like, hey, man, I want to do this thing. And then I told Kevin, I was like, well, I'm funking. I'm sitting in the front seat of my car. Let me just start it. The first year I did it from my car, right? And awesome. So like you said, out of sometimes unfortunate situations and tragedies comes something good. Because here I am going into our 4th year, Mark and I, and we're interviewing you. So
that's great.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm like, dude. You know,
it's funny. Yeah, exactly. There's like programs I fell in love with during the pandemic that were like this, like podcasts, talk shows, and all of that was our struggle and our striving to be part of a community again, to be doing something together, you know? And this togetherness, that is one of the benefits of that time, you know? So I think that's beautiful. More power to you. That's really amazing.
It was, people ask me, how did I get started? This, you know, I was like, man, I just needed something to do and somebody to talk to.
Yeah. Yep. That's beautiful.
And then from that, then Patty calls me up one day. I was like, Patty Collins. She calls me. She said, hey, we want you to be the Club Funkadelic ambassador, vice president. I was like, yo. So, nice. You know, she said, yeah, we've been watching. I was like, y'all been watching. So now I'm like, this little old thing. And I'm like, Boosie and Patty are paying attention to me. I was like, how is this possible? You know? And Carlin, of course, had reached out to me at one point, you know, and I chat with her. She's on the thread and she commented about one of my songs. And everybody, I got to tell you, that's on P-Funk Radio and all these different funk radio stations. We are a close-knit community.
Yeah.
Make no mistake about it. You know, and you're part of that. You know, you're like, you know, we see each other and it's like nothing but love. You know what I mean? And that's what I always loved about the funk. It was the concerts, the loving aspect. Everybody just max and relax. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, unity.
We got about like 10 more minutes, right? So I want to ask you going forward in the future, not so much the funk genre, but because of the tumultuous times we live in, I always have to ask you some social issues that come up now and then between people, and what your thoughts are on how we can bring peace, love, and harmony to the planet, because that's our mantra here. And I'd like your opinion on that. You're doing it with your music and with your, you know, history of what you're doing. This book right here, my God, I'm gonna make sure I get mine. You know,
nice. So, thank you.
What do you think we could do as human beings, as a species? Because it hurts me that we are capable of such beautiful dreams and such horrible nightmares at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think one thing is striving for understanding more than anything else. I think that like the moment that you can put yourself in anybody else's shoes is the moment you've already taken a step back and said, all right, breathe. Let's get this together. You know, let's see try your best to see how others may feel. You know what I mean? And yeah, one way that helps more than anything, obviously, is music. If we could put some impetus in focusing on the things that we do well as humans instead of the things that are terrible that we do as humans, because there's a good portion of both. There is a good portion of both. But, you know, on a social side, you know, it's a lot of it is fear and lack of understanding, ignorance, you know, all that stuff. Oh, okay, so what do you do to fight ignorance? Well, you read. You know, there was one thing I used to always say was, don't believe everything you read, but read everything you don't believe. And that's a good start. You know what I mean? No matter what you believe in, because at least then you're able to see the other side, even if you know the other side is wrong. You have to understand it. You can't just know that they're wrong. And how do you know? What do you know about the wrongness? Read about it. Figure it out, you know? And I just think that, you know, a lot of it comes from a lack of understanding, a lack of love for fellow man. And again, like what you were saying, one of the things I always loved about music in general, but also the funk, yeah, specifically, but music in general, is its ability to unite people, to bring people into solidarity together. I've seen shows where we were able to get like you said, everybody just on this one pulse, and it could be 200,000 people in this field in Belgium or something, or it could be, you know, halfway across the world in Japan or off the coast of Madagascar somewhere, like, and just seeing that reverberating love and passion and vibration, and that it's worldly. That's the easiest way to tell that we aren't hopeless, because we all do this one thing. We can all do this one thing, and that's like maybe the salvation that we have for the future. Those of us who get to see it from all these different sides are able to bring us all together and be like, look, you do it too. They do it too. You know, everybody shakes their booty. Everybody, or whatever, you know, whatever that thing may be. Everybody moves up and down like this when they hear this beat or whatever. Maybe it's not in the same rhythm or whatever, but everybody's feeling a certain kind of good. If we can kind of, you know, expound on that instead of expounding on the bad parts, then we'd be in a lot better place, I think.
Well, let me tell you something, brother. I know you got to run, but let me tell you something, man. You are doing it in a major way. You've been doing it, and you will continue to do it. And for those of you out there watching, this is Danny Dobrosian, Parliament Funkadelic, keyboard player and extraordinaire with his many other projects. And this is just the first of a few times we're going to bring in this brother. We're going to ask you to come back and back and back and back.
Sure.
Given your schedule, I'd love to have you as a pop-in whenever you can, man. And you know, I'll be in touch a lot more now because I know you're busy. And you know, but this is just the first of several that we're going to talk about this book. And we're going to make sure that everybody who watches this show knows it. It's a blessing. It's been an honor and a privilege. And like I said, this is the first of many. Welcome to the Funk from the Front Seat family. As soon as we get a budget for merch, you'll get some. But don't hold your breath underwater for that.
Well, no, I appreciate you, Zach. Thank you so much for having. This is the funk is its own reward. So this is
I like that.
Is much love.
All right, brother. You take care of yourself. I'll be in touch with you. Kiss the baby for me, man. I love you guys.
Thank you. Love you.
Take care, man. God bless. Take care. We've been hanging out with my main man, Danny Dobrosian, man. And you know, this brother is such a hard working brother. Y'all heard all the things that he was into and that he's doing, right? And the fact that he's maintaining this level of consistency with everything that he does. And of course, you know, the book that's coming out that is simply going to blow people's mind because it's a combination of a history lesson in the genre of P-Funk now, and everything else that was an offshoot from that. And being a disciple, of course, you know, and Club Funk and Ambassador Vice President, I have to have it. If I don't have it, it would be horrible. It would be remiss, you know. And, you know, the fact when we continue to grow and evolve as artists, as musicians, as human beings, as people, as, you know, nurses, as, you know, gas station attendants, as bus drivers, as policemen, firemen, you know, as teachers, as educators, you know, as we continue, and massage therapists, as we continue to evolve, we need to understand, like the brother said so eloquently, halfway around the world, if you bouncing like this and we bouncing like this and we bouncing it together, we're pushing that love into the universe, sending it out, pushing it in, pushing it up and pushing it out. And that's what the funk has always been about. To me, when I first heard my very first funk song, and, you know, like I said, Testify, and my dad being a minister, and, you know, I was like, man, you know, I got to get this music in the house somehow. And I was able to get it in. The amount of energy I felt from the funk music was something that I had never felt before. And I had listened to Hendrix, Motown, grew up on Grand Funk Railroad, Buddy Miles, Miles Davis, Louis Armstrong, Mahalia Jackson, the Five Blind Boys. I was in it all. And when I heard that funk stuff, I was like, man, there's no way I could not do this, Also, follow and check out his album, Secret Army. It's definitely worthwhile because I heard it and it's tight, man. When we think about music in general, we all have the same two sets of ears. One set. Some of us got two because I'm an alien. That's why I wear the scarf to hide my other set. But we hear things differently. But one thing about good music, you don't have to speak the language, but you all hear it the same way. And I'm going to say that again, because when you hear something, if I hear some good Latin music, and I'm not affluent in Spanish, I speak a little, tú hablas español poquito, but I hear it and feel it the same way that somebody who's affluent in that language hears it. And that's one thing I like about the funk. I met a brother from Australia at the Funketeers Ball a few years ago, and he's from Australia. Shout out Australia. And we were talking about the funk. And we're halfway around the world from each other, but yet we're talking about Knee Deep. We're talking about Electric Spanking the War Babies. We're talking about Ted Roof Off the Sucker, Mothership Connection, So truly, the genre called funk, called P-Funk, that George and Bootsy and Bernie and everybody else, Gary Shot and Boogie Munson and Eddie Hazel and Tiki Forward and, everybody, man, Billy Bass Nelson, it just goes on and on and on and on and on and on. All of the great players, I want to just say thank you to past, present, and future, because without you guys, my life down here on this planet would have been miserable. Okay, I'm going to just put it like that. As much as I love all kinds of music, I needed that funk. Right now, shout out JTRP, P-Funk Radio, love you. Gabe, man, Funketeers Ball, bro. Also, Larry's Funkster Jones, Club Funketeer president, and all the other shows like Philly Phil Get on the Funk Bus, Robin Circle of P, and all of these great shows, these funk shows, and Ricky Vincent out in Cali, knocking it out, keeping the funk alive, and up in Dayton, Ohio, David Webb, the Funk Chronicles, which, by the way, has been picked up on 9 on the Grind TV, and you can listen to that, the Funk Chronicles Dayton, Ohio radio show every Sunday at 3 p.m. on where? 9 on the Grind TV on YouTube, and y'all can check that out. Bootsy and Patty, of course, my mentors, love you guys. I can't ever tell you how much I love you guys and everything that you do for us. HJ Entertainment and Kanan Jams, I love you. And also Michael at xotv.me. And all you Club Funketeers out there, you want to be a member, just go to clubfunketeer.com. Yo, check it out because it's definitely worth it. We got a lot of new stuff popping up, and we appreciate anybody that is funk, not fight. It's the new kryptonite, right? That's how we roll in it, okay? So Nappyhead Funk Army, of course, Oak City Music Collective down here in North Carolina. Afterglow, 92416. Otis, Q&A Entertainment, Brooke Clagett, my funk angel. Oh, yeah, Funketeers Ball. Love TXS Energy Drinks. Patricia Dioria, Aquarius Rising Art. Curtis Wilcox, I love you, Curtis. And George the Funk Vinci. They do all my artwork back there. And also, George the Funk Vinci and his, thing that we're doing on 9 on the Grind TV. And we loving that. So thank you, George. I'm feeling you, bro. Dr. Brookenstein takes care of my website. DJ Cocolino, DJ Elizabetta. I love you guys, man. And David Webb, Funk Chronicles. Again, I mentioned you because, brother, you're holding it down up there. And everybody out there watching that stays active on the chat line week after week, year after year. We're into our 4th year. I'm loving it. My Jets are looking good. Jets, Jets. I'm loving that. And, of course, I'm rocking my PFunkRadio.com. because they play the Nappy Head Funk Army music, man. So I know we got some serious things that we're going to be doing coming up in the few years that we've been back from COVID. I actually am very optimistic about the future of funk and where we're going to go with it and how we're going to proceed with it. And I really do think that we're in a really, really good place. And I actually think that as we continue to grow and spread peace, love, and harmony and spread funk, we need to always remember that we're all one. Like Boosie said, it's the power of the one. So we're going to get out of here. Funk from the front seat. Before we go, I'm going to bring my producer, Mr. Mark Leon, so he can have a very, very quick word about what we just witnessed from this main man, Mr. Danny Dobrosiev. How you doing, Mark? You're on mute.
Oh, hold on a second. Amazing conversation. Y'all were giving all that history. It was amazing hearing a member of the Funkadelic family and all of that. You did another masterful interview, as you always do. You have become a definitely pro at this whole game. I might have to give you a opportunity to win a Pulitzer or something along those lines, because you are definitely
well, thank you. That would be nice.
The journalism field, as one that has been in this field for a while, I can definitely give you praises in that regard. And I'm trying to figure out, you talking about those Jets, how my Vikings are doing. We're doing all right, and we'll see if we can continue to do all right, because I can never tell how we're doing in this football season and all along those lines. And of course, it is September, which means that it is the close of some of the festival seasons and all of that. I know that Centerfest has been going on, some other festivals have been going on, and they'll definitely be a little bit quieter in the outside festival as we go further into the fall and into the winter. But since we're in September, there is definitely some opportunities to go and enjoy some outside entertainment, because it's a little bit cooler than it was in the summer. So that's always great, and always in that kind of space. And like I said, it was just masterful hearing him, your guest, speak about Curtis Mayfield, because Curtis Mayfield, along with Stevie Wonder, Gil Scott-Heron, and others, is some of those messenger musicians. So I'm definitely a big fan of musicians that are bringing positive messages and bringing a message to what they do. That's something that I admire about what you do, whether it is that whole spiritual song that you've done, or United We Stand, or a number of others. I would put you in that messenger category as well. So it's always good when we got those messengers that are also musicians and other artists as well, because we do know that there's some painters and some actors and others that are using their artistry to get a positive message out there, because it's all about positivity after those 3 very rough years of COVID and all of that space. But folks are definitely needing those positive vibes, that positive energy, and all along those lines. So you are doing a great job, as always. And of course, we're having a little bit of technical glitches, but hey, it happens. That's the nature of what goes on in the power of the world and all in that space, because sometimes computers and phones want to do their own thing and all along those lines. But that's just the power of technology. But we don't let that stop us. And you still did an amazing interview, and all in that space.
All in that space. Speaking of the funk, you mentioned something about Curtis Mayfield. I didn't know you was a big Curtis guy.
I like Curtis. Yes, I do like Curtis. I was actually into Curtis Mayfield and some of those others that were part of the whole kind of field around the blaxploitations, is what some people used to call them. I just used to call them soul films, whether it was Curtis Mayfield, or you might not know this, but I actually had the pleasure of working with the legendary Isaac Hayes when he came to the Blues Festival. And so I'm dressed in the chains and the whole 9 yards. So yes, Curtis Mayfield, whether it's Superfly or definitely Isaac Hayes and Shaft. Yes, I did watch those. And of course, there was some great funk, some great R&B in that classic movie Car Wash as well. And we won't even talk about Cooley High. So yeah, there has been some times that I have dwelled into some of the music that you are part of as well, because I definitely have listened to some of the greats, even in the Parliament Funkadelic kind of category. And of course, I even remember a group that you might not remember all that well, but I don't know, you're from New York. You probably remember the Emotions and all of that line. So you probably remember the Emotions. And definitely, you mentioned Mother's Finest. I've definitely enjoyed them. And I don't know, you might have even heard of this band called Taste of Honey. So yeah, there are some R&B bands and stuff that I was also a big fan of as well.
The Emotions, that was all Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Earth, Wind, and Fire. Like Maurice and all of them was playing all that music.
Oh,
and
yeah.
a band called Pockets as well. That
Oh,
Maurice
yeah, I
had
remember
produced.
Pockets.
Yeah, that's why if you listen to that doom 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 doom, that's straight up Verdine White. You know what I'm saying? I was blessed because I got a chance to see that tour with Emotions. It was Niecy Williams, Pockets, The Emotions, and Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Wow.
And at the time, they all had hits out. And it was amazing. Coming round and back to this funk, coming back to it, doubling back. The planet itself needs a funk cleansing. And we're giving it to it right now. This planet definitely needs to be cleansed of all the, as Bob Marley would say, evil Armageddon stuff, and where we are right now with this music, with the 4-second attention span, etc., etc. I'm glad to see more live performances.
Hey, I got a crazy question to ask you, Zach, because it is September, which means that it is also campaign season. A lot of people are getting involved, and of course, the elections will be coming up in 2 months or so. And I don't think anybody has approached you yet. But if anybody is listening and they want a Nappy Head Funk Army released to be a campaign song at one of their campaign rallies, would you be open to that opportunity and all along those spaces?
Well, yeah,
who the candidate is.
I appreciate all of that, and that would be really, really nice. But it's been my experience that people aren't really legitimate when they offer those things. So until I actually see it, I could try to manifest it. But I would, if somebody says it, they just say it. Everybody says stuff. I've been dealing with that thing down here for a minute. So, I appreciate it. It's nice to be thought of and nice and shopped and all this other stuff. But truth be told, I've been down here for 10 years. So, if people do, they do. If they don't, they don't. At this point, I don't really look forward to that happening, only because of the way the certain areas of this country are set up. Now, when the brother was talking about Japan and Belgium and Madagascar and all around the world, it's a whole different vibe. But, in these little small towns, I appreciate Durham and it's cool and everything. But truth be told, they're not really trying to push the funk.
I wasn't even thinking about Durham. I wasn't even thinking about Durham.
They're not really trying.
Yeah,
to be honest with you.
But I wasn't even thinking about Durham. I was actually thinking about a national thing. But like I said, there have been candidates that have gotten music songs that they liked and have used them in their campaign rallies. And as you and I know, sometimes the musicians didn't always agree with the politicians that chose to use their songs. So like I said, there's a certain presidential candidate that might try to use United We Stand. And I don't know that we would necessarily would think that he has actually tried to be a unifier and all in that space. And I'll just leave it at that because he's
maybe, yeah. I mean, that's cool. I mean, yeah, hey, if it happens, I'm for it. All my stuff is available. So if they drop a dime and drop a check, they could go with it. I'm with that. I don't mind, I think that because the amount of content that is out there is so much now for people to grab from digitally. Like the brother was saying, Danny was saying, it's hard to get paid, when people are taking 2 to 3 or 5 minutes of your stuff and they're not looking at the whole. So, Patreon, man, that's a very good way. And I'm glad whoever started that company, because they make sure that the little guy, the hardworking man or woman, the man that's marred his face in the mud and dirt and soot and stuff, and the woman that's out there grinding, they get what they're supposed to get, because that's very, very important. And as we grow and the world changes, I know there'll be the next big thing, and that'll be cool too. So. But anyway, brother, it's time to hit the road. Let's get the funk out of here. I guess today, Danny Brosian was here. And, we're going to make sure that we have that brother back on many, many times. He was nice enough to join us off the tour. And that's a beautiful thing. And don't forget, you can check out all his information right there at patreon.com, /Danny Brosian. And, it's a nice, kind, wonderful thing that the brother did to come on our show and hang out with us in the front seat. So you guys were amazing today. I appreciate it. And when we get to the point to where we stop having fun and there's no more fun in the funk, which will never happen, that'll be like, the last days in time, because right now funk is alive and well. We're going to keep it alive and well. We're going to make sure it stays alive and well. So peace, love, and harmony. And I most definitely will see y'all next Saturday. From the front seat. Our guest today was Danny DeBrovian, y'all. Let me put on my glasses so I can see what they ain't looking at.
You probably don't remember me. You probably don't believe this, but I am the age of 72 was adopted by aliens.
9 on the Grind TV, funk for the front seat. Don't forget, once you learn to dance, you'll never forget.
That's right, I said aliens. They have long since programmed me to return with this message.
What's up, Florida? Oh, Danny DeBrovian was in the house with us today, y'all. Ohio. Make sure Long Island where I got my funk start. New Jersey, you heard? Up and down the East Coast, Virginia, Chocolate City, D.C., Philadelphia. You walk a mile in my shoes. North and South Carolina. New Orleans, Georgia. Clap your hands. Oklahoma, Nebraska, Chicago, Minneapolis, Detroit, Canada, North and South Dakota. One of my favorites, yo. Electric spanking of the war base. California, Nevada, Washington State, Hawaii, Samoans doing the Humpty Hump, Tokyo on the rising, yo. Japan, China, Germany, Australia, Italy, Dubai, Africa, all around the world for this book. Colombia, Puerto Rico, Egypt, Iraq, Iran, Pumapuco, nothing but the funk all around the world, y'all. My producer, Mr. Mark Lee, always keeping it funky. Y'all sit back. Y'all have a beautiful Saturday, all right? Yeah. Y'all
Have a good one. Peace out. Ah.